The metallic halls of the Galactic Alliance headquarters buzzed with nervous energy as Earth's representatives signed the final documents for membership. Among the various alien diplomats watching the ceremony, Blue stood out, not just because of their crystalline form that sparkled under the artificial lights, but because they were the only one taking detailed notes about the humans' physical movements. Jack Smith watched the broadcast from his family's farmhouse in Kansas, his calloused hands gripping a coffee mug tightly. At 22, he had never imagined he'd live to see humanity join an interstellar civilization. The newscaster's voice filled the quiet living room. As part of Earth's integration into the Alliance, all member species are required to contribute to the joint military force. 2 months later, Jack found himself standing in line at the Earth Defense Force Recruitment Center. The alien observers stationed there drew more attention than the human recruiters. Blue, now assigned as the primary military liaison, watched with growing curiosity as hundreds of humans voluntarily signed up for military service. "You understand this is not mandatory?" Blue asked a recruit, their crystalline form vibrating with confusion. "Your species has only been required to provide 5,000 personnel, yet we have seen 50,000 volunteers in the first week alone." Jack, who stood next in line, smiled. "Ma'am, or sir, with all due respect, humans have been training for this moment for centuries. We've got military traditions going back thousands of years." Blue's crystalline structure shifted colors, a sign of surprise in their species. "But your planet's gravity is 1.3 times the galactic standard. Your atmosphere is thick with corrosive oxygen. Your temperature variations are extreme. Surely your training must be modified to accommodate these harsh conditions?" The recruitment officer, Sergeant Miller, couldn't help but chuckle. "Modified? No, sir. If anything, we'll be toughening it up. Can't have Earth looking soft in front of the galaxy, can we?" As Jack completed his paperwork, Blue transmitted an urgent message to the Alliance Council. Humans appear to view their harsh planetary conditions as insufficient for military preparation. Request immediate observation privileges for their basic training protocols. The Council's response was quick: request granted. Document everything. Initial analysis suggests human training may provide valuable insights into Deathworld species' military capabilities. 1 week later, Jack stood at attention alongside 50 other recruits at Fort Benning. The morning sun had barely risen, but the air already felt thick with humidity. Blue and a small team of alien observers stood at a safe distance, their environmental suits humming as they adjusted to Earth's atmosphere. Drill Sergeant Morris paced in front of the formation, his voice carrying across the parade ground. "Ladies and gentlemen, you are now part of the first Earth Defense Force training class. Behind me are our alien allies. They're here to observe how we do things on Earth. Let's show them why humans have survived on this death world for thousands of years." Blue's recording device captured the glint of pride in the recruits' eyes. Their analysis software struggled to comprehend why these humans seemed eager, even excited, about the challenges ahead. Jack squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of humanity's reputation on them. The alien observers had no idea what they were about to witness. Basic training on Earth wasn't just about creating soldiers, it was about pushing human limits, forging unbreakable bonds, and proving that humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to thrive in conditions that other species considered impossible. As Sergeant Morris ordered the first formation run in full gear, Blue's crystalline form flickered with concern. The humans were heading out in the scorching Georgia heat, carrying loads that would exhaust most Alliance species within minutes. Yet they moved with purpose, their cadence calls echoing across the training grounds. The first day of basic training had begun, and with it, the galaxy's perception of humanity was about to change forever. Dawn broke over Fort Benning with an angry red sun. It was only the third day of training, but to Blue and the other alien observers, it felt like they had been watching a prolonged execution. Their environmental suits struggled to compensate for the humidity as they recorded the events unfolding before them. Jack wiped sweat from his eyes as he and his fellow recruits finished their 5th mile. The weight of their packs had become a constant companion, like a clingy predator trying to drag them down. Next to him, his buddy Tom wheezed but kept pace. They had learned quickly that falling behind meant extra attention from Sergeant Morris. "Is this not considered torture by your species standards?" Blue asked Sergeant Morris, their crystalline form clouded with concern. The alien observer had just witnessed a recruit vomit from exhaustion, only to rejoin the formation seconds later. Morris smiled, a gesture that made Blue's structure vibrate with unease. This is just the warm-up. Hell Week hasn't even started yet." The alien delegation's report that evening was filled with alarm. Human military preparation appears to involve voluntary submission to near-death experiences. Subjects continue despite clear physical distress. Most concerning, their instructors claim this is not yet at full intensity. Day 4 brought the obstacle course. Blue watched in horror as humans crawled through mud under razor wire, their bodies inches from potentially lethal cuts. The aliens' confusion grew as they observed the humans encouraging each other, shouting support even as their own muscles trembled from exhaustion. "Keep moving, Tom," Jack shouted, helping his friend over a 12-foot wall. Sergeants watching. Blue's sensors detected elevated heart rates, dangerous core temperatures, and stress levels that would have hospitalized most Alliance species. Yet the humans pushed on, their determination seemingly growing stronger with each challenge. The night brought no relief. While the alien observers retreated to their climate-controlled quarters, the recruits faced their first night navigation exercise. Rain poured down in sheets as 50 humans attempted to find their way through dense woods using nothing but basic tools and their training. "They navigate without AI assistance," one alien observer noted with disbelief. "They rely on primitive magnetic devices and stellar positioning." Jack and his team slogged through the darkness, their uniforms soaked and muddy. They had already been awake for 20 hours, but stopping wasn't an option. As they finally reached their checkpoint, Sergeant Morris was waiting with more good news. "Congratulations on finding Checkpoint 1, recruits," he announced with a grin that everyone had learned to fear. "Now do it again, but faster. The last team back gets to demonstrate push-ups in the rain." Blue transmitted an urgent update to the Alliance Council. Human training methods appeared designed to break both body and spirit. However, subjects show increased unit cohesion under stress. Most worryingly, their instructors seem to derive satisfaction from increasing the difficulty of already impossible tasks. As dawn approached on day 5, the alien observers gathered to watch the humans begin their morning routine as if the night's ordeal hadn't happened. Despite less than 2 hours of sleep, the recruits assembled in formation, bodies straight, eyes forward. "Your species considers this basic training?" Blue asked a mud-covered Jack during a brief water break. "What then constitutes advanced training?" Jack managed a tired laugh. "This is just the first week, sir. We've got 11 more to go. Then, if we're lucky, we might qualify for the hard stuff." Blue's crystalline form flickered with what could only be described as terror. The alien observer watched as Sergeant Morris bellowed for the recruits to begin their morning exercises, their voices unified in response despite their exhaustion. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers, it was their ability to push beyond what other species considered possible, and then keep pushing further. 2 weeks into basic training, the alien observation team had shrunk from 12 to 3. The others had requested reassignment, claiming the constant display of human endurance was causing them psychological distress. Only Blue and 2 others remained, their dedication to understanding human capabilities outweighing their horror. The morning started with what the humans called a light PT session. Blue watched as Jack and his fellow recruits performed their 4th set of 50 push-ups, their arms trembling but faces set with determination. Remarkable, Blue's colleague, Green, noted through their environmental suit. Their muscle fibers should have failed by now. The lactic acid buildup alone. Log time. Sergeant Morris's voice cut through the morning air, interrupting Green's analysis. The recruits immediately broke into their assigned teams, each group approaching a massive tree trunk stripped of branches. Jack took his position at the front of the log, with Tom and 3 others falling in behind him. At Morris's command, they hoisted the log onto their shoulders. Blue's sensors indicated each log weighed approximately 450 pounds. 3 miles, recruits. Let's see some hustle. Morris bellowed. The alien observers tracked alongside the groups, their instruments recording every vital sign, every strain, every drop of sweat. What fascinated them most wasn't just the physical exertion, but the constant communication between team members. Shifting right, Jack called out, his voice strained but clear. "Tom, you good back there?" "Never better," Tom gasped. "Just enjoying the morning stroll." Blue transmitted live data to the Alliance Council. Humans appear to use humor as a coping mechanism during extreme physical stress. This enables them to maintain group cohesion even when approaching biological limits. The log carry ended at an artificial lake, but the recruits knew better than to expect rest. Without instruction, they lined up at the water's edge. "Water survival training," Morris announced, though his grin suggested survival might be optional. "Full gear, 1 kilometer swim. Blue, your team might want to step back. Things are about to get wet." The aliens watched in disbelief as 50 humans plunged into the water wearing combat boots and uniforms. Their equipment should have dragged them down, but they adapted their swimming techniques to compensate for the extra weight. Their bodies are operating at 94% of maximum cardiac output, Green reported, scanning the swimmers. Core temperatures elevated. Muscle fatigue critical. They should be physically incapable of continuing. Yet continue they did. Jack focused on keeping his strokes steady, occasionally checking on Tom swimming beside him. The weight of his waterlogged uniform tried to pull him under, but he had learned to work with the resistance rather than fight it. "How?" Blue asked Morris. "How do they keep going?" Morris watched his recruits with pride. "Because they can. Because they must. Every human here knows someone back home who's counting on them to succeed. More importantly, they know their teammates are counting on them." After the swim, the recruits immediately began hand-to-hand combat training. Their uniforms were still dripping, their muscles exhausted, but they squared off against each other with renewed focus. "Notice how they're not using their fatigue as an excuse to perform poorly," Morris pointed out. "In real combat, you don't get to call a timeout because you're tired." Blue's final report that day included a surprising observation: human training appears to deliberately stack physical challenges beyond reasonable endurance limits. However, their success rate increases when tasks are made more difficult. Hypothesis: humans possess psychological override capabilities that allow them to bypass normal biological limitations. As the sun set, Jack and Tom sat cleaning their rifles, their hands steady despite the day's ordeal. Blue approached them, curiosity overwhelming protocol. "Your species trains like this regularly? Even in peacetime?" Jack looked up from his weapon. "This is actually easier than some of our civilian sports training camps. Ever heard of something called 2-a-day football practice in Texas summer?" Blue decided some questions were better left unasked. The 4th week of training brought crisis to the alien observation team. Green announced their departure after witnessing what humans called the confidence course, a series of towering obstacles designed to test recruits' ability to overcome their fears. "I cannot continue documenting what appears to be systematic psychological torture," Green declared, their crystalline form pulsing with distress. "They are forcing their young to climb structures at heights that could result in death, with minimal safety equipment." Blue watched as Jack helped Tom tackle the 40-foot rope climb. Tom had frozen halfway up, his fear of heights finally catching up with him. Instead of allowing him to descend, Jack climbed up behind him. "Remember why you're here, Tom," Jack called out, his voice carrying across the training ground. "Think about that letter from your little sister. She's counting on her big brother to become a space marine." Sergeant Morris stood beside Blue, observing the interaction. "This is why we push them so hard," he explained. "It's not about the individual challenge. It's about learning to help each other through their worst moments." Blue's sensors detected elevated stress hormones in both recruits, but also an increase in what humans called determination. Tom started climbing again, Jack following close behind, until both reached the platform at the top. "Remarkable," Blue transmitted to the Alliance Council. "Humans appear to gain strength from supporting their struggling companions. Their collective resolve increases when facing individual limitations." The afternoon brought more departures from the alien observation team. The remaining observers couldn't handle watching the hand-to-hand combat training, where humans deliberately struck each other with padded weapons. "They're beating their own teammates," one observer exclaimed before fleeing. "And their instructors encourage it." "It's called training with purpose," Morris said to Blue, now the sole remaining alien observer. "Every bruise they get here is one less lesson they have to learn in real combat." That evening, Blue witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about humans. During the evening meal, they observed Jack and Tom laughing with the same recruits they had fought hours earlier. "You have damaged each other's bodies," Blue noted, confusion evident in their flickering crystalline structure. "Yet you show no signs of resentment or desire for revenge." Tom grinned, sporting a fresh bruise on his cheek. "Are you kidding? Jack here finally helped me perfect my blocking technique. I couldn't have learned it without getting hit a few times first." Blue's report that night was their most detailed yet. Human training serves multiple purposes simultaneously. Physical conditioning, skill development, and psychological hardening are interwoven. Most surprisingly, what appears as conflict actually strengthens their social bonds. The next morning brought the most challenging event yet, a 20-mile march with full combat loads through difficult terrain. The temperature soared, and even Sergeant Morris looked concerned as he checked the weather report. "Sir," Blue approached him, "these conditions exceed safety parameters for most known species. Surely you will postpone this exercise?" Morris shook his head. "War doesn't wait for good weather, Blue. Neither do we." As the recruits set out, Blue's sensors tracked their vital signs with growing amazement. Despite the heat, despite their exhaustion from weeks of training, they moved with purpose. When one recruit stumbled, others immediately adjusted to help carry their load. Jack and Tom marched side by side, sharing water when supplies ran low, encouraging others when spirits flagged. Their actions demonstrated something Blue had never seen in any other species, the ability to turn shared suffering into shared strength. By sunset, as the last recruits crossed the finish line, Blue made a decision. They would stay until graduation, no matter what horrors of human training remained. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity's true power wasn't in their ability to endure, but in their capacity to grow stronger through challenges that would break other species apart. The Alliance Council's demand for a combat demonstration came during the 6th week of training. Blue received the transmission while observing morning exercises, concerns raised about human combat effectiveness. Request immediate practical demonstration comparing human recruits against Alliance elite forces. Sergeant Morris read the request with a smile that made Blue's crystalline structure shiver. "They want to see what our recruits can do. Well, let's show them." The Alliance sent their best, veteran warriors from 5 different species, each with at least 10 years of combat experience. They arrived in gleaming powered armor, carrying advanced energy weapons adjusted to training settings. "Your recruits will face our veterans in a capture-the-flag scenario," the Alliance commander announced. 3 objective points must be secured and held. Standard competition rules apply. Jack looked at the alien warrior's equipment, then at his own basic training gear. Sir, he whispered to Morris, they've got powered armor. We've got boots and determination. Exactly, Morris replied. They don't stand a chance. Blue watched as the human recruits gathered for planning. Instead of looking intimidated by their opponent's superior technology, they appeared excited. Tom, remember that mud pit from Hell Week? Jack asked, sketching a rough map in the dirt. I've got an idea. The simulation began at dawn. The alien veterans moved with precision, their powered armor allowing them to cover ground quickly. Their tactical displays and advanced sensors swept the area, looking for human heat signatures. They found none. Where are they? The Alliance commander demanded, watching the monitors. Blue, explain your humans' behavior. Before Blue could respond, the first alien team reported power failures in their suits. They'd attempted to cross what appeared to be solid ground, only to find themselves waist-deep in mud. As they struggled to extract themselves, shadowy figures emerged from camouflaged positions. First team eliminated, Morris announced proudly. Looks like someone found out powered armor doesn't work too well when it's filled with mud. The second alien team encountered their own surprises. The humans had recreated their obstacle course training, turning the battlefield's urban section into a maze of rope bridges and climbing challenges. The aliens' heavy armor, originally their advantage, became their greatest weakness. Second team contained, came the report. They're stuck on the third floor. Seems their fancy suits can't handle simple rope climbing. Blue sensors tracked Jack and Tom's team as they approached the final objective. Instead of using the obvious routes, they crawled through drainage pipes, used hand signals for communication, and moved in patterns that confused the alien sensors. Impossible, the Alliance commander muttered. These are untrained recruits. They cannot be outmaneuvering our veterans. The final confrontation came at the central objective. The remaining alien team had fortified their position with energy shields and automated defenses. They waited for a frontal assault that never came. Instead, the humans attacked from below. They'd spent the previous night memorizing the facility's maintenance tunnels, a detail their advanced opponents had overlooked as insignificant. Final objective secured, Morris reported, his voice carrying more than a hint of pride. Simulation complete. The Alliance observers stood in stunned silence. Their elite veterans, with all their advanced technology and years of experience, had been defeated by humans who hadn't even completed basic training. How? The Alliance commander asked Blue. How did they do it? Blue's response came after careful consideration. You assumed superior technology would guarantee victory. The humans assumed they would have to work harder, think smarter, and act more creatively to win. They made your advantages irrelevant by changing the nature of the battle. Jack and Tom emerged from the facility, covered in mud but grinning. Permission to clean up and prepare for tomorrow's training, sir? Jack asked Morris. Granted. Well done, recruits. Blue's report to the council that evening was brief. Warning, human basic training does not just create soldiers. It creates warriors who view overwhelming odds as an interesting challenge to overcome. Recommend immediate reevaluation of humanity's military potential. The aftermath of the simulation victory was short-lived. As the recruits entered their 8th week of training, nature decided to test them in ways no training exercise could replicate. Weather satellites detected the approaching storm too late. By the time the warnings came, the massive hurricane had already changed direction, heading straight for Fort Benning. The base's alien visitors immediately retreated to their reinforced ships, but the training facility's power grid was already showing signs of strain. Blue, you should evacuate with the others, Sergeant Morris advised as rain hammered the command center's roof. This is going to get ugly. I will stay, Blue replied, their crystalline form steady despite the growing chaos. My mission is to observe humans in all conditions. The first power failures hit as wind speeds reached dangerous levels. The facility's backup generators kicked in, but the alien-designed power cores were never meant to handle Earth's extreme weather conditions. Jack and Tom were in the middle of night training when the crisis began. Their squad had been practicing urban warfare scenarios when the lights went out and the wind started tearing at the buildings. "Sir," Jack reported to Morris through the storm. "We've got people trapped in Building C. The safety doors activated when the power went down, and the alien tech isn't responding to override commands." Morris assessed the situation quickly. The alien evacuation ships hovered safely above the storm, their crews watching with a mixture of concern and fascination. The Alliance veterans from the simulation were among them, having deemed the conditions too hazardous for their powered armor systems. "They can't help us," Morris announced. "Their equipment isn't designed for these conditions. We do this ourselves." Blue watched in amazement as the human recruits organized themselves without prompting. Jack's squad immediately began rigging manual pulley systems using their climbing ropes. Tom led another team to secure loose equipment that could become deadly projectiles in the wind. "This is precisely the kind of situation our safety protocols are designed to prevent," Blue transmitted to the Alliance Council. "The humans are deliberately putting themselves at risk to help others. That's what the training is for," Morris shouted over the wind. "Everything we've done has prepared them for moments like this." The rescue operation proved every bit as challenging as their toughest training days. Jack and his team battled hurricane-force winds as they scaled the building's exterior to reach trapped personnel. The techniques they'd learned on the Confidence course were now being used to save lives. Tom's group worked to restore power, applying their knowledge of basic electronics and good old human muscle power when the alien technology proved too delicate for the storm's interference. They'd learned during training that sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. "Sir," Blue asked Morris as they watched the recruits work, "did you train them specifically for this scenario?" Morris shook his head. "We trained them to think on their feet, to work together, and to never quit. The specific challenge doesn't matter." Hour after hour, the humans worked through conditions that their alien observers considered unsurvivable. When the power cores threatened to overload, recruits manually vented the excess energy, their bodies straining against forces that would have crushed most species. By dawn, as the storm began to weaken, not a single life had been lost. The recruits, exhausted but proud, gathered in the mess hall for a well-deserved meal. Their uniforms were soaked, their bodies battered, but their spirits were higher than ever. Blue's report to the council that morning was emphatic: human basic training creates individuals who run toward danger rather than away from it. Their ability to function in conditions we consider catastrophic is not just impressive, it's transformative. They don't simply survive crises, they thrive in them. Jack and Tom sat together, drinking coffee, already discussing ways they could improve their emergency response next time. "You know," Tom said with a grin, "compared to Hell Week, that wasn't so bad." Blue's crystalline structure flickered in disbelief. They were beginning to understand that with humans, the impossible was just another training opportunity. The parade ground at Fort Benning gleamed under the morning sun as the first class of the Earth Defense Force prepared for their graduation ceremony. 12 weeks had transformed 50 civilians into something the galaxy had never seen before, humans who had mastered their already formidable potential. Blue stood at attention alongside the other dignitaries, their crystalline form polished to perfection for the occasion. The Alliance Council had assembled in full, their curiosity about human military capabilities having evolved into something approaching awe. "Record everything," the council head had instructed. "Every species in the Alliance needs to understand what we've witnessed here." Jack adjusted his uniform one last time before formation. The fabric felt strange after weeks of training in mud and sweat-soaked gear. Beside him, Tom straightened his collar, both of them fighting to suppress grins. "Did you ever think we'd make it?" Tom whispered. Never doubted it for a second, Jack replied, though they both knew there had been moments when graduation seemed impossible. Sergeant Morris strode onto the parade ground, his boots striking the concrete with practiced precision. The recruits snapped to attention, their movements synchronized after countless hours of drill. Honored representatives of the Alliance, Morris began, his voice carrying across the field, I present to you the first graduating class of the Earth Defense Force. These recruits have completed what we humans consider basic training. However, I believe their achievements have demonstrated that basic is a relative term. Blue stepped forward to deliver the Alliance's address, their structure gleaming with barely contained excitement. When I first arrived to observe human training, I expected to document a military preparation program. Instead, I witnessed the forging of something unprecedented in galactic history. The alien observer's next words sent ripples through the assembled Alliance dignitaries. The Council has unanimously voted to adopt modified versions of human training protocols for all Alliance military forces. Furthermore, these graduates will serve as instructors, teaching other species how to unlock their own untapped potential. A murmur ran through the crowd. The idea of mere recruits teaching veteran Alliance warriors would have seemed laughable 12 weeks ago. Now, after seeing humans in action, it made perfect sense. Additionally, Blue continued, I have completed my report titled, The Human Factor, Why Earth's Basic Training Will Revolutionize Galactic Warfare. Its primary conclusion is simple, humanity's greatest weapon is not their technology, their numbers, or even their physical capabilities. It is their fundamental understanding that true strength comes from pushing beyond perceived limits. The graduation ceremony proceeded with perfect military precision. As each recruit received their insignia, Blue sensors detected something remarkable, their vital signs showed more strength, more endurance, and more resilience than when they'd started training. They hadn't just survived the program, they had evolved through it. Jack and Tom accepted their graduation badges together, their journey from farm boy and city kid to Earth Defense Force soldiers complete. But it was what happened next that truly demonstrated how humanity would change the galaxy. The first class of alien trainees arrived immediately after the ceremony. They stood nervously, representatives from 12 different species, each considered among their people's strongest warriors. Now they would learn the human way of training. Welcome to Earth Basic Training, Jack announced to the alien recruits, having been selected as lead instructor. What you're about to experience will seem impossible. That's good. Impossible is where we humans do our best work. Blue watched as the alien trainees attempted their first pull-ups, many of them struggling with the simple exercise. Yet instead of frustration, they showed determination. They had seen what humans could achieve, and they wanted that same transformation. Remarkable, the Alliance Council head said to Blue. They're actually eager to experience training that terrified our observers. That, Blue replied, their crystalline form glowing with pride, is the true legacy of human basic training. They haven't just proven themselves stronger than we imagined. They've shown us that every species can be stronger than they believe possible. As the sun set on graduation day, Jack looked out at his new alien trainees and smiled. Humanity's journey to the stars had begun not with advanced technology or overwhelming force, but with the simple, profound lesson that limitations exist only to be overcome.